Hi, this is Jason, and today I'm going to show you how to use our three cows template. This experiment uses a commons dilemma with three participants to study how people make a trade-off between using a common good and using a private resource. In this particular experiment, we set this up for three participants. By default, you can have one human participant and two bots. You can choose as many number of bots or as many number of participants as you want. If you don't want any bots, you set the bots to 0. If you want 10 bots, you can set it to 10. But the default here is 3 participants in total. We have two bot types, one for random and two for a previous choice. So the random bot is going to choose one of these three buttons. In this case, we just have bring to the comments and barn feed as the options. And it'll randomly choose one of those two. Alternatively, if you push 2 into here, the bots will choose one of the player's random choices, previous round choices. The extra buttons are if you wanted to add other choices. If you wanted to update the choices, you would just have to add the text here and then change the payoff matrices at the bottom for what happens when somebody presses button 3 and another person presses button 1. And here's just a count of buttons, so you show the third button shows up. You enable polling to let people see the results between rounds. There's a couple of timers to let people take time to see the individual pieces of the experiment, whether it's making a decision, seeing the instructions, the timer at the end of the game, which shows the final results. What you want to do with timers is you want to make sure that people are able to progress through the experiment without having to wait for everybody else to press the continue button. Sometimes people forget, they walk away from their keyboard, or they drop, and you don't want people waiting on infinitely. There's a default choice here, so if there's inactive, you can select barn feed, but it just has to be lined up with one of the button options. More timers. Instructions can be dynamic or static. Static instructions are a little easier for you to update because they're just in the files, but you set this to 1 for it to be static and 2 for dynamic. Others average payoff, others total payoff, self-average payoff, self-total payoff. These are pieces of feedback that players can get within the experiment at the end of their round. So they can see others' payoffs or others' choices. They can see their own payoffs and their own choices from previous rounds. These are all easy things for you to experiment with to change the way that people make decisions about whether to use the common resource or not. There's a scoreboard order, so they can see who is the leader first or who is the least performing first, depending on how you want to organize it. And lastly is the number of total rounds. So the default here is 10 rounds, but you can go to 100 rounds for a really long experiment, or just 1 round for a one-shot version of the experiment. And lastly, I want to point out the payoff matrix. It's a 2x4. Since there are 3 participants, what you want to do is you want to know what's going to happen if both people, or all 3 people barn feed, all 3 people go in the commons, or if 2 or 1 of the others chooses the commons or barn feeding. And so in this case, I believe if all 3 choose to barn feed, choose the commons, they lose 3 points. If just 1 chooses the commons, it pays you 75. The way this is structured is you get the same amount of points for choosing the commons if you are the sort of winner. If you're the only person that uses the commons, but there's a punishment for either being the only person to use the commons, or being the only person not to use the commons, or the one of many to use the commons. Play around with the payoff to see exactly the payoff that you want. Again, change it based on the number of participants that you're using and the payoff buttons. Once you're ready to test, you can go to the demo tab, click launch, and you'll be able to participate as one person. You can also participate as multiple participants as well. So you see here's the dynamic instructions. Go ahead and exit out of this. But edit the variables as you like them, and then test them in demo. If you want to really get your hands dirty and look at how the study works and change some of the more intricate details of it, you can. Financialgame.js or financialgame.html is sort of the core file here. All right, Thank you. If you have any questions, please send us an email at support@volunteerscience.com. Thank you.